Welcome to the SVG-TV news for Friday, June 10th. I'm Khalil Cato with the details. Today, members of the St. Lucian Cannabis Task Force wrapped up a 3-day fact-finding mission with local cannabis players as St. Lucia moves to roll out its own medical cannabis industry. The 4-member delegation, which included Minister of Commerce Emma Hippolyte, who is also chair of the Cannabis Task Force, Dylan Norbert Inglis, Deputy Chairperson, Vern Emanuel, Public Relations Officer, and Andre DeCides, a task force member, toured various cannabis production sites in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and held a closed-door meeting with the local traditional farmers and members of the Rastafarian community. At a news conference today, Minister of Agriculture Saboto Caesar says over the years, SVG has developed best practices and a solid regulatory framework to build up the medicinal cannabis industry to what it is today. Caesar urged the St. Lucian delegation to take the lessons from this SVG's cannabis industry as a guide.
What we want to state as a modern medicinal wellness production platform is that we don't want our sisters and brothers in St. Lucia to make the same mistakes that we made. Even though we did an excellent job, we want to ensure that we can work with you to guide you. We have for centuries worked together. We have worked together as member states of the OECS recently, and we know we have the OECS Secretariat in St. Lucia. But even when we were colonies, we were working together. So if we were working together when we were colonies, now that we are sovereign and we are independent, we need to, as an exercise of our sovereignty, see what synergies that we can have.
Minister Caesar says SVG is willing to partner with the St. Lucian government to build up their cannabis industry, noting that the ultimate dream of the SVG government is to have a consolidated cannabis industry for OECS member states.
I think the ultimate dream would be within the OECS for those member states that will come on board to establish cannabis industries, that we can synchronize the legislation, so we have harmonized legislation across the sub-region, and that we can utilize the resources of a consolidated medicinal cannabis authority, so we don't have to duplicate a lot of the work and incur significant costs at this point in time when we are grappling with the resultant vagaries of the Russia-Ukraine conflict that is causing significant inflation globally. So we don't want any member state to be shy at the cost incurred in establishing the medicinal industry platform, because we see that going forward that we can engage in a discussion where we can share human resource capacity.
The Deputy Chairperson of the St. Lucian Cannabis Task Force, Dylan Norbert Inglis, says this week's tour has provided insight on what steps St. Lucia needs to take to develop its medicinal cannabis industry, and that they intend to improve on SVG's existing model.
From the time we landed, we had initiated this process of reviewing what St. Vincent has put in place over the last 3.5 years to establish and to maintain what we see as a vibrant cannabis industry. As a region, though it is an industry that is a party we planned, we were somewhat late to it, and we acknowledge that. But being that we are late to our own party, we will be best dressed at it. You can guarantee that. We have seen what the other larger countries have done at our party, and we intend to ensure we have cognizant of their models, bettered it to the benefit of the traditional farmers. And we can say in St. Lucia that at the table, we have brought on a number of the traditional farmers and specifically the representatives of the Ayanola Council for the Advancement of Rastafari. And they have played an integral part in sensitizing us, some of the persons who may not necessarily have had an appreciation for the intricate parts of the cannabis industry as to how things work and how we can best model an industry to support them as well.
Challenges facing Rose Place fisherfolk are being compounded by the decision of some boat owners to accept compensation packages from government, leaving them without boats to ply their trade. The fisherfolk say they are worried about being jobless, as they will have to find a new location to operate from with the Kingstown Port Modernization Project coming on stream. The project, funded by the Caribbean Development Bank at a cost of $185 million, will see the lower Kingstown area transformed into a modern seaport. Residents were recently relocated to a new housing development in Lomans Bay. However, President of the National Fisherfolk Association, Winsbert Harry, says assistance for relocation is not being extended to fishermen. Harry says on their own initiative, Rose Place fishers have been searching for an alternative fishing base, including at Edinburgh and Kalyaquah, but he claims they are being denied from moving to a new location.
There's no space and no any other beach in St. Vincent to put us. Why don't leave us in Rose Place? The port project is not coming to Rose Place. I'm pleading. Please leave the fishers in Rose Place.
Harry says there is also a division being created between boat owners and fisherfolk. He explains fishers have rejected government's compensation packages as they wanted to be relocated first. However, boat owners have accepted the packages, leaving some fisherfolk without boats.
There are many fishers who fish from Rose Place, about 120 of us. Some of us not own our own vessel. What they have done now is put the fishers and the boat owners apart, because the boat owners now will have to look for alternative spot for put a boat. There was no alternative spot was given under this port modernization project for the fisher folks. We all know that the persons who were squatting on the beach, they all gone to Lomans Bay, but now they leave us the fisher folks stranded without any way out. And now boat owners now have been forced to take a compensation package and find a beach to put their boat. This is really unreasonable for us as fishers, because what it has now done is put us, the fisher folks, without a job. Because when these boat owners take this compensation package and they go with a boat, we have no jobs. It will now bring a closure to the Goodwill Fishermen's Cooperative, because who will be represented? That will be the end of fishing in Rose Place.
Some of the affected fisherfolk lamented that fishing is their only livelihood, and they're appealing to the relevant authorities to help them find a new location for their base so that they can continue plying their trade hassle-free.
I'm a fisherman, but I want to see whether what they're going to do for over here, whether it's going to be good, but we want to get what is due for us. We need that.
Oh man, and we are fishers now. We left stranded. There's no place for us, because as the owners of the boat, plenty of them decide to take a package. Some say they're not taking a package because they don't decide to move from down here. And I agree with them 100%, because I'm one of the fishers who will be left stranded. Now I have my rent to pay, because I live in a rent house. I had to pay that rent, I had to pay my water bill, my light bill, and there's no other thing I depend on more than fishing.
They should at least get the courtesy to put us somewhere, just like how they put the people who were squatting on the bayside somewhere. They already have a home to settle. Why you can't settle the fisherman, Mr. Prime Minister? This is a communist country, this is a democratic, everybody have rights. And I think that you should discuss with the fisherman and try to find somewhere that they could go, and everybody will be happy.
I have my sympathies with the inshore fishermen, because I have been through a similar situation.
Being able to check on the engine, being able to, where they could have the gas rooms and all those were things that we proposed to the port modernization project, and they have shifted and want to deal direct with the boat owners, and that people could just pull up anyway. And we really think that based on all the groundwork that we were doing, that was really disrespectful and so on. But we continue with the process, and we hope that good sense will prevail, and that in the interest of national development, and as we're talking about the blue economy, we definitely have to lift the game.
Vaccinated and unvaccinated travelers to SVG will no longer require pre-arrival forms from Monday, June 13th. On arrival in SVG, the Port Health Officer will instead complete each passenger's Port Health form. The new protocol also states that fully vaccinated persons will no longer be required to arrive in SVG with a COVID-19 test result, but they may be tested on arrival for COVID-19 as determined by the port health officer. Unvaccinated persons, however, must still arrive in SVG with a negative COVID-19 test result. The COVID-19 rapid antigen testing should be done 24 hours before arrival, or COVID-19 RT-PCR testing should be performed 3 to 5 days prior to arrival. Additionally, unvaccinated persons may be retested for COVID-19 on arrival in SVG and must comply with a mandatory quarantine period of 5 days at their own expense at a Tourism Authority Ministry of Health and Wellness Transition Quarantine Approved hotel. Unvaccinated travelers will be retested between days 3 and 4. Children under the age of 18 are considered minors according to the protocols and are subject to the same protocols as their parents or guardians. If a minor travels alone, he or she must stay with a guardian in a private residence for the duration determined by their country of origin and vaccination status. According to the protocols, a fully vaccinated traveler is someone who has completed a vaccination regimen with a vaccine recognized by the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Meanwhile, the latest COVID-19 stats provided by the Ministry of Health on Thursday puts active cases at 186. There are also 3 hospitalizations with 10 recoveries. To date, 108 people have died from COVID-19 in the country. SVG Air has signed a memorandum of understanding with, that should be a contract with mainland Grenada to provide air services between Carriacou and Petite Martinique. The flights are set to begin in July. Grenada's Minister of Tourism, Dr. Clarice Modeste Kerwin, says it is a game changer between Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We hear more in this GBN television news report.
Contract really comes into force from the signing. However, the flights will start the 1st of July, and the contract is up to the 30th of June 2024. It's a 2-year contract in the first instance, and we would hopefully 2 years from now be renewing routinely a contract that is very for a route that is very viable.
This agreement signals improved airlift between the islands. Modeste Kerwin notes this as a momentous occasion for Grenada, citing it as a game changer between Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
The Twin Otter has been cited as one of the smaller aircraft that is very reliable in terms of safety, and also because of the capacity, it could serve us better if we handle it correctly. And so we have finally managed to come to an agreement with SVG Air through the managing director, Mr. Paul Gravel, and his team.
Flights would be carried out 5 days per week between the territories, which will give people options in terms of flights arrangements. Paul Gravel is the managing director of SVG Air. He indicated that there will be added flights to what has already been established. In light of this resumption of airlift, one of the setbacks is that of lightings allowing for night travel. This, the minister indicated, will be worked on. Christina John, GBN News.
Infectious disease specialist Dr. Jose Davy is reminding Vincentians that HIV, AIDS, and other sexually transmitted diseases are still present in the society and persons should continue to protect themselves. Dr. Davy gave the reminder during the Agency for Public Information's Good Morning SVG program.
Well, I say what I usually say about STDs, sexually transmitted diseases. They're never dormant because you can't tell people not to have sex. The world population would die, dwindle and die. So once sex is happening, there is a risk for any sexually transmitted disease. And certainly HIV is not dormant or dead. We're still having new cases. And the one unfortunate thing about it, we're still having new cases that seem to be at the AIDS stage, meaning that these persons probably would have had better health or better outcomes had they come forward and do their routine screening. There are some persons who may have been feeling ill for a while and they take things for granted, and then when we see them, it may be too late at times, and I think in 2022 it's rather unfortunate.
Dr. Davies said though the number of new positive cases of HIV/AIDS has decreased in the last 3 years, there is a greater concern, noting that some of the new cases recorded have been showing persons in the last stage of HIV.
It is concerning, although I must say for the last 3 years we have had less new cases. So maybe like 7 years ago we'd have 65 or in that region new cases, but we're now down to about 15 cases a year. So there's a good drop. But of course, I always take the stats with a pinch of salt. Is it that people are still out there and they're not coming? Maybe COVID would have prevented some persons from seeking health care, although nothing closed for us. We still ran the clinic, even though there was COVID. Quick science lesson. Everything starts with acute infection, as in the moment you contracted it through having sex. And it goes through stage 1, 2, 3, and stage 4 is AIDS. So stage 2 would have minimal weight loss, nothing that you would bother about. You just think maybe I didn't eat well for a few months and that's why I'm losing weight. Then you get things maybe like fungal infections, and 3 like tuberculosis, recurrent bacterial pneumonias, other things that will clue you in that something is not too right, more weight loss, some chronic diarrhea. It depends. Everybody gets different things, maybe thrushing them out. So it varies. But you must know as a person that I don't feel well, because it just doesn't go through and then you die. There are signs and symptoms that things may be happening.
The infectious disease specialist further encouraged Vincentians to get screened for the sexually transmitted disease, adding that persons in the high-risk categories are not getting tested for the virus.
So what has happened straight across the board for many years, usually it's people who are in the really high-risk group. We don't see them testing because
who's the high-risk group?
So high-risk group will be people who have more than one sexual partner and they're not using barrier methods, the condoms. Also people who have, well, we don't say prostitution in St. Vincent, but it's sex for money.
What do we say?
They hide it under that term, sex for money.
Okay.
And yes, people wouldn't like to be labeled like that, but a lot of people have
sex workers
for money.
They say sex workers, right?
Yeah,
okay.
They do. These people are at risk because sometimes they cannot negotiate condom use, or the person might say if you do it without you get more money. All of these things that people don't talk about, but we know it's happening. Those persons are at risk. Men who have sex with men, they're at risk as well.
Men who have sex with men?
Yes, they're at risk. Mm-hmm.
And so those people are not coming forward to get tested?
Some, but not as much as we'd like to see.
Despite the many hurdles that students in SVG had to overcome during the COVID-19 pandemic and the eruption of the La Soufrière volcano, they continue to persevere, including being prepared for local and regional exams. This is according to Minister of Education and National Reconciliation, Curtis King. King, who was at the time speaking on Star Radio's ULP Speaks program last evening, also boasts of the resilience of the people of SVG, noting that the COVID-19 pandemic was not their first nor only rodeo. However, they continue to overcome everything life throws at them. The Education Minister says the results of the CPEA exams 2022 will be out soon, and in keeping with the education revolution, the government of SVG is devoted to ensure all students are given a chance at secondary education.
COVID. We return to face-to-face instruction. We prepared our students for the external exams and the internal exams, and thank God, as Chronic says, it is a blessing. We have completed the CPE examination. In fact, the results would be shortly announced, because I know CXA in the final stage. They soon will be sending us the exams so that our young students can know about their performances, and the Ministry of Education naturally will be making every possible effort to ensure that we place into a secondary school every one of those students that participated in those examinations.
Minister King noted that as a result of the post-independence deficit that the nation of SVG inherited, there will always be things within the education system that would need to be corrected, and credits the recent pandemic for shining a light on the key areas that need to be looked at.
But always see challenges as bad, and we must not always see every crisis as an opportunity to waddle in self-defeat. No, we must always seek to turn whatever setbacks these challenges might pose into opportunities for advancement. You know, the Prime Minister makes a statement in a different format all the time, but it is a crucial statement that when we study, we'll see how valuable it is. But don't just study it, let us act in that manner. And I'm saying that despite all the great things that our education system in this post-independence period has done, let us not forget that we inherited deficits.
King further noted that despite the areas that need work, the education system is still able to produce students who advance to some of the top universities in the world and excel greatly. The St. Vincent and the Grenadines Medical Association, in collaboration with the staff of the blood bank at the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital, will host a special blood donor drive tomorrow and on June 18th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the outpatient department of the hospital to raise awareness of the need for blood donation and accept blood donors to the blood bank. The general public is invited to actively participate in these events. The SVG Medical Association says additional to the aims of this year's campaign is to rebuild the blood donor registry of regular committed donors so that the blood bank is kept in full readiness year-round to maintain adequate supplies and achieve timely access for any eventuality, such as emergencies and disasters, to which the country is vulnerable. Thanking those who have been regular donors for over the years, the SVG Medical Association and the MCMH Blood Bank are encouraging the youth to embrace the humanitarian call to action to donate blood and inspire others to do the same, noting that giving blood is a life-saving act of solidarity and every drop counts. Eligible donors must be 17 years and older. World Blood Donor Day is observed annually on June 14th. For 2022, the World Blood Donor Day slogan is "Give blood and keep the world beating."